Hi, everybody. My name is Mike Hendrix. I'm the president of smbGOLF. And today, my guest is Jay Karen, CEO, National Golf Course Owners Association. And this is the Tech Caddie Podcast. Jay, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thanks, Mike. Appreciate coming on. I can't wait to talk shop with you.
I feel like this is long overdue, so I appreciate you making time. And we're going to try to be true to our roots and certainly talk about technology, but I don't want to miss the opportunity to, have a full discussion on what's going on in the industry and that kind of thing. So I really do appreciate you making time for us.
Yeah, you can throw fastballs, softballs, curveballs, whatever you got. Let's have a great chat.
Okay, good. So I'm in Upper Arlington today. This is where I almost always record the podcast from. But today in Upper Arlington, the U.S. Senior Open is being played. We can walk to it from here. I probably given up too much information. I live on a road called Elmwood Avenue. And this is where Jack and Barbara bought their first house in Upper Arlington. Jack went to high school like Jack Nicklaus. Jack Nicklaus went to high school where my boys went to high school. And I named my first son Jack. And so as people can imagine, Nicklaus is a big deal around here. Nicklaus learned to play at Scioto Country Club. And the relevance there is in 1926, Bobby Jones won the U.S. Open at Scioto Country Club. Nicklaus's father attended that U.S. Open, and that's what brought the Nicklauses into Scioto Country Club. And ultimately, Jack would start to play, and the snowball kind of took off from there. So we're super excited to have Mike Wan in town this week and welcome these guys. And as you know, Jay, Scioto Country Club is a member of the National Golf Course Owners Association. They're a member of the Ohio Golf Course Owners Association. And so everyone around here is super excited for the event.
I mean, there's some great golf in Ohio. I've had the good fortune of traveling there for work and for pleasure. And I tell you, Midwest golf, it can be really underrated. When people think of great golf around the United States, I absolutely, in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and some of these other states, the hidden gems. I know it's just a great place to grow grass. The turf is so lush and everything's so green. I love getting out there and seeing the great golf courses around Ohio. Yeah.
Yep. Certainly that Long Island area where we just had the U.S. Open is amazing. But then where we live here on this Route 70 corridor, so that's Oakmont, that's Scioto, right? It goes all the way to St. Louis. That whole corridor has amazing golf. And of course, in Ohio, we're fortunate. We've got Firestone, we've got Inverness, we've got Coldstream. I mean, the list goes on and on.
We're like foodies that talk about restaurants, geeks that can talk about like this about golf. We can talk forever about the great places that are around America.
That's right. You're absolutely right. So speaking of golf, and of course, you're the CEO of the association. I always try to start with this with everybody. Like, why golf? Why did your career ultimately happen in golf? What brought you to the sport?
Well, like most people, it's funny you say why golf. It's like I see it almost like why associations. It's like I happened into and fell into and tripped into a bit both golf and associations here in one place. It was 1997, and I was getting my master's degree in history, thinking I was going to be a teacher. My goal was to be a social studies teacher in high school. And I was here in Charleston. I needed, some extra cash while I'm living as a 23-year-old. And a friend of mine's mother worked at this place called the National Golf Course Owners Association. I happened to have spent a lot of time in my college career and other things like being presidents of clubs, presidents of student government, all that, which are mini associations, mini, mission-driven kinds of organizations. And my first job out of college was at the National Fraternity headquarters of Kappa Sigma. So my very first job in 96 was in the bowels of a national organization at HQ. And then here I come to Charleston in 97, didn't mean to, but stumbled into working at another headquarters office of a national organization. So at least I had some familiarity in how these things work, a board of directors and a staff and members and all of these things. And the rest is history, Mike. I just hook, line, and sinker into both the association profession itself. I just became a real student of that pretty early on. That it was in golf was a happy accident, as Bob Ross would say, right? It's like pure luck. And I happen to have been playing golf since I was 10 or 11 years old. So it was just a confluence of pretty wonderful circumstances.
That it's interesting. Talk some about, because I don't think you talk about this a lot in the golf world. Talk about the world of associations. Does the internet and the ability to share information make it more difficult for associations to attract members? Like, what is the state of associations as we sit in 2026?
That's such a great question, because when, 30 years ago, when the internet became a very commercial entity in our world and our lives, in the association space, there was a lot of questions around, are we going to survive the internet? Because if associations are well known for providing information, and now you can get information directly from all kinds of sources and may not even have to pay for it, it felt like a huge threat to associations. And so we had to, as a sector, kind of analyze, well, what are our strengths here? And the strengths are, well, trust. So when associations publish things, there's a relative trust amount. So associations are still looked to for information because of the trustworthy factorness. And then there's also advocacy. You can't do advocacy necessarily very well from the internet, right? And so I think a lot of associations really get stronger there.
Advocacy translates to like leaning on a congressperson. Is that essentially
primarily government affairs, whether it's federal, state, or your local dog catcher or whatever?
Yeah.
But in our case, as you know, like it can also mean for trade associations, especially if there are market forces that are happening that might really influence an entire industry. And it might have been the internet or artificial intelligence, or in many cases, like large online tea time companies, and how much space they were taking up in the industry, and what impact it was having on golf courses. And there was an advocacy bent to working with that sector on trying to achieve good health for the industry, right? So the association sector is incredibly strong, alive and well, even though as a society, we're consuming it differently and interfacing with it differently. No different than association members were in the beginning of the 20th century, right? I happen to right now, it's funny you asked that question. I'm sitting right now as the current chair of an organization called the American Society of Association Executives. It's the association for people who run associations. Very large organization, 52,000 members across the United States. We represent the entire association sector. When you think about it, Mike, it's everything from the National Restaurant Association and the American Chemical Society to pharmaceuticals, healthcare, teachers. Every trade and profession you can imagine has their association. They all come together and learn how to be better association executives in this ASAE organization. And we study, and we're always working on how can associations be more successful, keep their relevancy in American society, et cetera. So I get to do the golf thing, and I get to do the association thing too.
Okay. So before everyone tunes out, that the internet is not going to kill associations, and you all are thriving.
Yes.
I do think this is interesting. A question, not to put you too much on the spot. In terms of golf, are you where you want to be membership wise? Like, is the NGCOA where you want it to be? Should it be bigger? Is it, I mean, look, what about this? Is it right in line with other associations in terms of penetration? I don't know any of those answers. Like, talk about that a little bit.
The other associations that people know about, they have individual members. The PGA of America, individual members. Superintendents Association, individual members. Even Club Management Association of America, you join as an individual. There aren't really many other trade organizations in golf that have the organization join. NGF, I think you can join as a golf course, et cetera. But we're hovering right around 4,200 golf courses nationwide right now. And when I took over in 2015, we had 3,000. So it's heartening to see.
It grew by over 33%. Pretty good.
Yeah, as the industry actually contracted from a supply side too. On top of that, right?
Good point.
Now, so I feel good about our progress and our success. But if you're running an association, you always want more, right? You want to have more. But when you look at the marketplace, you got three distinct sectors. You've got the municipal sector, you got private clubs, and then you have every other kind of golf course, which is public but privately owned to some degree, whether it's the Pebble Beach Company or it's Alison George and her family owning a course in Iowa and everything in between. So that sector, the privately owned public course, was kind of our nucleus and why we were born. The private club sector has Club Management Association and the National Club Association as the kind of first go-to, even though we have about 800 private clubs in NGCOA. The municipal sector has never had their own association to just take care of them. We've kind of adopted that sector into NGCOA. And the way we talk about it now, Mike, is we don't care what type of owner you are. You belong with us, whether you're the town that owns the golf course, whether you're the members that own the golf course, or you're Mike Hendrix who owns a golf course. We're about health for the facility, right? And so I would love to. I think, for us, I'd feel better if we were at 6 or 7,000 golf courses nationwide. We're like a church. We got to get you to join every year. Got to keep coming back,
Yes,
right?
right, right,
So
right.
that's the nature of. We don't have certifications.
Do you index against the National Restaurant Association? I used to be a member of the National Restaurant Association. How do you index there?
I don't know,
Okay,
honestly. Because I mean, I think in the trade association space, if you're hitting 25 to 30% of your entire possible market, you're pretty strong. You're
got it.
pretty good. Yeah,
Got it.
for trade organizations. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So to me, one of the things that I like about the NGCOA as it sits today, and then even as I see it in the future, right? I love this concept of education. So and it's interesting that you were in college to be an educator.
Mhm.
You mentioned Allison. She was a teacher. Me, myself, I was never got a teaching certificate, but I coached high school basketball. I was very drawn to the idea of coaching and teaching a skill to
Mm.
people, right? So I think associations like this are good places for teachers to be. And we're going to have this webinar in a couple of weeks where we're going to try to teach anyone that comes to the webinar about some things. But before we get too deep into the webinar, talk about the education piece. I mean, I love advocacy, but it
Mm.
would seem to me like education is everything, right? If you
Yeah.
can help people pick up some things and run their businesses better, that's what it's all about.
Up until 2015, I'd say, and so if that was for a 35-year period of NGCOA's history up until 2015 or so, education was our crown jewel. And you can distill almost every activity we did down to education, even the networking. If you say, come to a conference, yeah, you get the education in the classroom, but the people you meet and the Accelerate platform where we're crowdsourcing ideas, in the end is all about education, right?
Mhm.
What am I learning from my peers? What am I learning from the experts? We've delivered that in one form or another through our entire history of the organization, right? And then this advocacy thing became the second crown jewel. Is really what happened at NGCOA. We built a shop around it and found there was incredible value to it. So we really kind of run a two-headed organization that way because, and it's beautiful thing about it is as much as the world changes, as much as the economy changes, as much as consumerism changes, we have to change too. So there's always something to educate around. It's a perennial thing that associations need to bring to the table to their members. And if you're not doing a good job, then members won't. If you're not providing valuable education, they won't join. And tell you the truth, Mike, when I came back to golf in 2015, because I left NGCOA for many years, I came back in 2015. I looked at what's the opportunity here. As a CEO of this organization, what I saw was that there was an opportunity to use my role as CEO to educate, to be provocative with thinking, to get people instead of just propaganda and say like, "Hey, here's what the association's doing. Hope you go to the conference." Yeah, we do that stuff. But I was able to. I thought because that's what I love is I'm an educator. I love getting people thinking. So I've used my bully pulpit now for almost 11 years to do that. So I'm kind of scratching the itch as a teacher
Yeah.
sometimes as in my role as CEO.
Yeah, yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. So the webinar that I kind of alluded to a second ago, we're gonna it's on July 16th, 2 p.m. It's free. We hope everybody signs up. And from what I hear, we've got good signups already, so that's great. But we're gonna talk about something that I think is all about education. We're gonna talk about that the operator probably doesn't know today that they have an opportunity to drill into some data that is being collected all the time. It's just a matter of whether you can get to the data or not. And in this case, it's specific to their online tee time booking engine,
Hmm.
right? That you really should be able to know more about who visited the booking engine. Not, some people might think visits and they think, well, like website, right? Visit. Well, we're talking about the booking engine itself, right? Who came to the booking engine? Where did they click in the booking engine? Did they ultimately buy a tee time, or were they there simply for comparison shopping purposes, right?
Mm.
Lots of reasons people go there. And unfortunately, in the world of booking engines today, it's not as easy for everyone as it is for some. And so we're going to have a couple of guests on that have booking engines where we think they've made it really easy for the operator. But clearly, this gets into like a friction point. And I think it's really interesting for someone in your seat. You want to have great relationships with everyone in golf. You want the technology companies to provide these amazing services and tech for your members. But at the same time, if we say like, but right now you're not doing that, like that can be uncomfortable, right? And I
Mm.
just thought it would be interesting to talk through that. And I'm happy to take on more of that than others. And that's fine. That's kind of the seat I've found myself in because and I'm okay with it because I feel like I'm doing it for the good of the operator and I'm very aligned with the operator, but it's got to be difficult at times, I would think. And it would be interesting to get inside your head and hear how you sort through some of that.
Man, great question. Yeah, I mean, that's the tightrope walk that we have as associations, right? When 80% of NGCOA's funding, let's say, comes from the supplier community, 80%, right? And then
Amazing.
the other 20% is divided between dues dollars and registration income from the members themselves. And so, you want to pay respect, you want to, support those that support you. But at the end of the day, there are times sometimes when a sector, whether it's the tech sector or whatever, might be a little astray, might have done something that's offensive, that might not be pulling their weight in something, whatever that might be, that we think that they should, because the technology is the nervous system of every golf course, right? So it plays such an important role, which is interesting, Mike, because then because it's a central nervous system, it gets the most heat too. When there's any discussions around the supplier community in golf and golf course owners and operators, it goes right to the software companies.
Yeah, we're not talking about flag stick companies, right?
No. Do though, right, Mike? Love them too. No, but your point is it's a good one because your wallet is connected to it, your lifeblood, your customers are connected to it. So there's a heightened sensitivity around it and heightened expectations. Well, I'm giving you direct access to my bloodstream here. I hope you're doing right by me. Credit card companies, same thing. We've had, when we see funny business going on with merchant processing, we got to call it out. Especially, well, in some cases, it's so egregious that it's theft. We get involved. There's probably a scale of egregiousness if there are issues, and we don't actually have one, but there's a gut feel to it that, wow, they're cheating our members, or this is bad for our members. Okay, we have to do this. Then there is, I wish the tech sector would do this. I wish, let's move them. And that's where we do something like the Tea Time Summit that we had last fall. We'll bring together the sector with golf course owners and operators to try to collaborate and co-create, get the customer in the same room as the vendor in some ways, and see what magic we can make from that. So there's going to be a different tactic for each one. But, we operate as though we're going to be in business forever, and we operate as though our partners are going to be around forever. So we take the long view. So we'll be sensitive to relationships. But at the same time, at the end of the day, I've got a board of directors only of golf course owners and operators. So they're going to hold me to account to, are we doing the right things by our membership? So it's a bit of a dance, which hopefully you can get a sense of respect and understanding of what it is like for me to be able to manage these relationships and moving parts. But it can be tricky. But at the end of the day, it's the owners and operators that drive our agenda.
Yeah. It is. Hey, look, it is tricky. And I love what you said about we take the approach that we're going to be in business forever and they're going to be in business forever. I think I can learn from that. I think that's a smart thing. I'm going to tuck that in and be like, yep, a good one. So I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
So this webinar is called Measure What Matters. And I kind of alluded to it. It really is about, it really, the long tail of this thing is my company started to produce our second version of where we rank booking engines, best booking engine in golf. And when we got into this second version of that report, I was disappointed because not much had happened from the first ranking, right? It was like, geez, nobody's doing innovative things. Nobody's getting better here. And so I kind of changed course a little bit. And I thought, well, what if we break down the booking engine by a few different things? And one of them would be, well, what is the reporting that comes along with a booking engine? How much, measure what matters. If you care about tee time sales, you should measure what's related to tee time sales. It only makes sense. Now, that brings me to Jay Karen as an operator, because Jay Karen, as an operator, you participate, I think, in the Airbnb ecosystem.
I do.
And so you're a renter. I don't know what's the terminology Airbnb uses.
We're a host. I'm a host. Yeah.
Okay. So you're a host,
yeah.
Meaning you really are really similar to a golf course owner, where you are a B2B customer of Airbnb, and Airbnb tries to serve a B2C customer through what you provide, right? It's incredibly similar to what we see in the golf course space. Question to you would be, how are the tools that Airbnb supplies to you as a
really good question? And I like to draw this back to the golf course too, because in my case, this is a great example where I've just got one unit, right? And it's important to me because it helps me save money for college for my kids. Like, any of the proceeds go right into the 529 account, right? But the scale of it, and it's more of a lifestyle hobby thing. I literally take care of it. I get some housekeeping help and all that kind of stuff, whatever. But it's a light thing in my life. And so I'm only going to look at the most basic stats that they give me in the reporting, right? Which is my earnings and what the future is looking like for future booking. They do give me quite a little bit of a dashboard to understand what's happening with my unit, and give me great tools to, try to spotlight it in the Airbnb system or whatever it might be. And it's one platform. Now, and a lot of golf course owners, to your point, are like that, where they're like, eh, you know, I'm happy with my level of business. The mortgage was paid off 30 years ago. So my level of care and need for data is going to be different than someone's like, I got to put food on the table tomorrow and pay the mortgage. And I got it to the staff. I need the data because
Yeah.
I've got these goals with my business, or I've got 10 of these golf courses. Oh my God, if I had 10 properties, I would be looking at very different reports and dashboarding in the Airbnb system than I do right now.
Or let me add one little maybe asterisk onto that. Or in today's world in golf, or I'm an operator that has come to realize I can make way more than $750,000, which I've been grossing for many, many years in a row. All of a sudden, I find myself in an economy where I think I could gross 1.5 million if I lean into this a little bit more, right? I mean,
Mhm.
right now is the time for. So anyway, go on with.
No, to your point. No. Let's analyze that for a second, because there's going to be an analysis that any business owner does when you say, look, I can lift you from 700,000 to 1.2 probably in a year. Their first thought is going to be, well, what do I have to do to make that happen? Now, if you're saying in the technology, there exist tools and reports, whatever, that can help you make pretty easy decisions that can lift you without having to put a heck of a lot of time or a heck of a lot more money in it, then it's like, now I'm listening kind of thing, right? And what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, what we'll probably find out in this webinar and other great content, is there are things that you're missing, you're not looking at, that are right there to help you make, yield more. And so let's learn about it. I'm all for it.
Yeah. And so to that point, because look, the booking engine is not a new invention, right? It's been around for quite a while. Tip of the cap to Golf Switch and others that built the very early Cypress, right? That built the very early versions of tea time booking engines. What has changed is AI. And what I mean by that is today, an operator is pressed for time. I think everyone would agree with that. If there's people listening to this and they think that like owner operators just have enormous amounts of time with nothing to do on they're crazy, right? Well, what I have been able to see, and others, I'm not special, is that you can start to use AI to understand the data that's always been at your fingertips, and that's where it becomes really interesting. And so that's actually we're going to do another session called the AI workshop down in Atlanta at the end of August, and I'm going to be there, and Allison George will be there as well, and we're going to teach people how to use, and this is for their own golf course, right? That they can build things just
Right.
specifically for their golf course. We're going to teach people how to use AI to go read the data associated to how their booking engine is performing, and then create a daily summary to help them, maybe in their inbox, to help them understand how their business is actually performing. That's the difference with AI. AI becomes this thing that unlocks everything and makes it so much easier for me to consume the information, understand the information, et cetera, et cetera. So I hope people will not only come to the webinar, but then they'll come to the workshop down in Atlanta, which is, and
Yeah.
that's not a virtual event. That's a face-to-face event.
That's in person, which there's
Yeah.
great value in there to be able to spend time with the faculty like you, not just in the classroom there, but whatever hours and minutes they can get out of you guys, I think is going to be super valuable. This is a little reminiscent of kind of the benchmarking efforts that we've been trying to make in the industry, right? Whether it's P&L benchmarking in the golf course or the public golf course side, or rounds and revenue, we've never fully cracked the code on benchmarking. And I think one of the things that I've talked to, like, Jim Copenhaver and Harvey Silverman about over the years, is like, why have we not cracked the code? Why isn't every golf course operator, like hotel operators, say, I'm in, right? And it's like, most of the time, I think it's because the data that they see is interesting, but not so much actionable, where it's like, okay, my ADR, or my average daily rate, or my rev par, whatever. Okay, here's where I am against the average set. Okay, thanks for sharing that. That's great. But now what? You know, like what am I supposed to do with that? And is it like we're in the hotel industry, GMs and others their compensation is based on some of the stuff as far as
Right.
where they stack against their competition. That's not the same in golf. Golf course pros and GMs are not paid on how well they're performing against their set usually in their markets. It's just not a thing. So what I'm thinking about with the AI data and being able to harvest data and give you insights is what my radar is going to be up for is to look for what continues to be, well, that's interesting versus now, what should I do about it? And what are
Exactly.
you telling me I can do about it? Like, okay, the data shows this. And by the way, we think you should consider doing this, whether it's with your rate or with your marketing or with whatever, that AI can help identify the action items to be taken from the data. That's what feels like it's been missing from this whole data thing in our industry.
And I think that there are several to-dos that can come out of this, but one actually, this kind of actually gets back to the friction piece, but because we don't talk about this as an industry, like we never talk about this. What if there just are some booking engines that operate better than others? Right now, we actually don't have the data to prove that out. Wouldn't you, if you were the J. Karen and you've opted to use Airbnb as your, like, your tech and service provider, wouldn't you want to know if, like, is the tech that Airbnb provides better than Verbo?
Right.
And so on one level, I think it's incumbent on us to help purchasers, operators that are buying tech, help them understand, good, better, best, whatever that is. Then secondly, we're going to get into this conversation about conversion rate, not how many golfers I had on my course on Saturday, but how many golfers considered being on my course on Saturday and how many did I convert into tee time sales. Like, that is such a basic metric in e-commerce, and we don't talk about that at all.
Using the funnel metaphor, right? It's like we try to get an idea of what comes to the funnel, but this funnel that we talk about is like it's opaque. You don't see what's inside of it. You just see what comes. So what you're talking about is like almost like a transparent funnel. What's happening in here? Where's the
Yes.
leak over here? How do you plug that up? Or how are they interacting? Why are they bailing? And all of these things that happen inside the funnel
Yes.
is what we just don't see, right? And
That's
you're
right.
talking about like showing that, right? And
That's
learning
right.
about that.
That's right. We came across a golf course about a week ago. It's in California. You tend to think of California as very forward thinking or whatever that is. There is no reason for this. They just don't have golf carts available when you sell an online tee time at the golf course. Well, and they did a year ago. And we start to look at the data and we're like, when you changed that and you took the golf carts out of the buying equation, but the third party guys still had golf carts available on your tee times, it made a material impact on what happened with your business. Well, you need to be able to see inside the booking engine to really identify those things. And so, look, and it's just one of a million things that we need to get better at. But it is concerning to me that we're not even having that conversation, right? We've gotten good at the conversation about dynamic pricing. We've gotten pretty good at the conversation about rate, but conversion, we don't talk about it at all. And I guarantee you, actually, I can say this because I did the research. Airbnb, they provide their hosts the opportunity to know what their conversion rate is, right? Like, I know that there are larger organizations that do that today.
Yeah. In that case, they're going to want to, because they want to show their worth. Not only we're your technology partner, but we're showing you that we help convert.
Yes.
Right? So there's value there. I think another maybe metaphor for this is like thinking about healthcare for a moment. Like for years, what did the doctor tell you? Okay, your blood pressure and your weight and your height. Okay, you're doing fine. Then all of a sudden it's like, well, but what about body mass index? And what about your blood count? And what about your hormones? And what about, so it's like we've been fed and we've only concentrated on the smallest number of measurements, and there's so much more out there to look at. And so it's like you're kind of like a physician bringing awareness to the fact that, wait a second, have you looked at your gut and have you looked at what's inside your intestines and how that could be impacting your health? And so we need to look at more information, more about our systems. It's no different than going to the doctor and understanding much more about your body and how it works, so that what do I need to fix? What do I need to work on?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But don't get, when you hear that, like, it feels like, oh, it's just another thing to do. But the kicker here is that, but we can use AI so it's not overwhelming. right? That there are ways that we can apply some AI systems to this so that it's easy for you to consume the information. It's not going to take an extra 90 minutes a day. Heck, it shouldn't even take an extra 10 minutes a day, quite honestly. It should not eat into the day. It should just be, we want to elevate this data point so that you can kind of chew on this a little bit.
Right.
You know,
I'm going to be curious to see where the AI and pricing goes on this, because there's some controversy around this. I want to talk about this a little bit. Where we talk, we've been doing dynamic pricing now in the industry. It's been growing. Not everybody's doing it, but everybody who does it loves it and doesn't turn it off. They never go back, right? And they're like, I wish I did this years ago, because they're just yielding more out of the current demand. It's not changing demand necessarily. It's just you're able to use a scalpel, to get more out of the existing demand that you're getting. Okay. Where we need to pay attention here as far as AI, and when it comes in and it says, I suggest maybe you change your pricing. I suggest, you see a soft spot on the T sheet here, whatever. It may turn into suggestions here. And we got to be careful here, just as an industry, to watch out for what's behind that. Is it taking into consideration competitor information on pricing and suggesting maybe where you should be and where you're at, or where you might need to be? And so the Supreme Court weighs in on this stuff, and there's some legality around this to make sure that the information going into pricing decisions is within the law and within, so that we're avoiding antitrust and collusion issues, and not active collusion, Mike. I'm not talking about getting in a room with your fellow owners and saying, what are you charging? What are you charging? But if the technology knows what everybody's charging, and if it's set to set me at the best possible pricing, the strongest possible pricing I can get, then there's something in the DNA of that, of getting competitive information and urging you to move your price upward. It can also move in the other way too. It may suggest maybe you should lower your price in this time. So I think as an industry, we need to watch out make sure that while tech is helping us and making suggestions, that we got to be mindful of what is in bounds.
Yeah. Let me just speak to that. I'll give you a little inside baseball on that. So I built the first dynamic pricing engine at Golf Now. And what I mean by that is that it was automated, right? Because I was super worried that we had provided this amazing tool set to operators around the country, but they weren't using it to change their prices based on like what they were seeing with their T sheet. And I got really worried that man, this isn't like, we got to figure out a way to automate this thing. And so it was me, a great engineering leader, Brian Geiger, and Charlie Klaus even helped some on the barter side. But when we built this engine, Jay, it was 100% at the discretion of the operator. So we built it in a way that you could set rules for every hour of the day. When I would go around the country, I would talk to the operator about, you need to look at every hour on your T sheet like a separate business. And based on the utilization of that hour, and then in relation to expiration, you get to decide what happens to the price. Does it go down 10 points? Does it go up 12? But I have heard some people recently in the industry talking about the operator didn't know what happened or whatever. I would just tell you, if we can dial that down a little, because the whole stinking system we built was all based on what the operator wanted it to be.
Right.
And so, but then the benefit was, and I think the benefit still to this day, is the automation, right? You got this latest Golf Business Pulse report that came out where operators love automation. The automation is a big deal. I think automation is wonderful. Now, I haven't been in that organization for a while. I don't know what they're doing today, but I can tell you, in the DNA of Golf Now, when we built dynamic pricing, it was at the operator controlled what happened, right? Because they were the ones that set the rules.
Yeah. And bringing it back to the Airbnb thing, they've got what's called smart pricing. And now I only have one unit, so it's different, but I can set my absolute floor that the price never goes below X. And I can turn on smart pricing. So basically, and I can override it too. If I know dynamic pricing, if I know a big concert's coming to Charleston or right in my backyard on Daniel Island, I'm going to raise the rates, kind of thing. But the smart pricing, I'll tell you the truth, I don't know what goes into it, but I allow Airbnb to price when it's on smart pricing. Yeah, they price it. I set the floor, they price it. And I have no clue actually what goes into their formula or algorithm to determine. And I'm sure it's looking at the market. It's looking at whether it's traffic hitting Airbnb for the Charleston area. Wow, traffic is heavy. Let's bump it, whatever. My hands are off. And as to your point, I like that. I'm like, I like it. Yeah, I don't necessarily want to see how they make the sausage, but at least I know my floor is X, and owners can always set floors on any dynamic pricing, module, right?
For sure. And then the question would be, Do you want to get a text message every time Airbnb changes the price with 2 paragraphs about the details of why they did it?
No.
No, you don't. Exactly.
I ain't got time for that, Mike.
Right. Yeah. All right. So anyway, like I don't live in the dynamic pricing world today. SMBGOLF, we don't do any pricing for any golf courses or ever, but for what it's worth, because it's kind of how I made my bones in this industry. I love dynamic pricing, right? I'm a
Me
big
too.
at.
Me too.
Let's talk about challenges. You're in Daniel Island. I don't know if geography matters or not in your role, but what's hard about running the NGCOA? Like, what is like, yeah, that one is difficult for us. What's difficult about managing the organization and leading the organization?
The two things come to mind. One is choosing what to work on. Our to-do list and our wish list is always greater than our capacity. We often get complimented, Mike, that wow, what a mighty, like they do what for at what budget? We're $4.5 million annual budget organization. We are a rounding error on, compared to some of our brethren organizations in the golf space. And our output.
Well, Jay, it sounds to me like you just need to create another major championship in golf, and you'll be just
Mike, it's been suggested many times over the years. Yeah, I'm like, nope, ain't gonna do it. But and so deciding what to work on, because we have so many worthy ideas and projects and it sounds like a kind of a trite little problem, but it really is a problem when you're a small organization trying to make big things happen. Is what, because we want to be open to every idea, every possibility, every possible relationship, and it gets very overwhelming. And so sticking to a priority list, but while leaving room for new ideas and progress and innovation or whatever, that's one of the biggest challenges of operating an organization like this. The second one I'd say is that growth question that you talked about. And it's an internal conversation we've had for a long time. We were founded in the 1970s as the Golf Course Association, GCA. And then in the early 90s, we changed our name to the National Golf Course Owners Association. That's primarily who was on our board of directors and really who we represented. We carved out a space in the golf ecosystem. When you looked at all the other organizations, nobody was really representing the owner. And that's really kind of who we were. So the name of the organization is our friend in so many different contexts. When I go to the Capitol Hill and I'm talking to a senator or a captain of an industry and I say I'm with the Golf Course Owners Association, clicks. Wow, you represent a pretty important constituent in the golf industry. They own the golf courses. Wow. Okay, cool. From a membership recruitment standpoint, if we're trying to recruit any and all golf courses to join the organization, if someone receiving our message is not the actual owner, or if someone running a municipal golf course and they're in the Parks and Rec division, they're like, well, I'm not the owner. We're not an owner. So using the power of the name while we're trying to recruit any golf course to join the organization, because we're open to everybody, it tends to be a challenge. Breaking through to the person, especially if you're never going to reach the owner, or if there's no one who identifies as an owner at that facility. So that is a kind of a perennial challenge that we deal with when we're out in the field out there.
Yeah. I would think too, like to me, you guys did yeoman's work around COVID, right? And it brings two thoughts to mind. One, but COVID only happens once every 100 years, right? And so, like, thank God, certainly thank God. But secondly, you did such great work in that moment that operators that weren't members of your association also benefited. And if I was Jay Karen, I would just be trying to figure that out every single day. I know my team is providing value to thousands and thousands of golf courses that are not members. What can we do to, kind of bridge that gap? That I'm just being honest with everybody. That would drive me a little nuts.
Yeah, it's motivating too, but it's got to be in small doses. I can't, if I thought about it all the time, I probably would go nuts. But you look at the Ohio organization, and there's kind of it's an interesting conversation around this. Now you're getting into association geekdom now, right? The Ohio Golf Course Owners Association for years had a few hundred members because they had a workers' compensation program that was what we call in our space the golden handcuff. The golden handcuff benefit as an association oftentimes is certification, like the PGA of America. You want to be a member of the PGA, you got to maintain your Class A status. You want to be a golf course superintendent, got to maintain that certification. When you're the owners association or a trade organization, we don't get into certifications usually because I own the business. I don't need to prove to someone my competency level as the owner of the business. I'm already at the top of my little pyramid. And so we have to appeal to them with different reasons. And you want to chase that golden handcuff benefit because you think, wow, if I have this one savings program, if I have this one thing, it'll make them be a member forever. And so you're always chasing that. And 99 out of 100 associations, that is elusive. And when the Ohio group lost that workers' compensation program because the state changed some rules, so that associations weren't the pathway to get the workers' comp program, they saw an enormous attrition, right? Because of that. So there's a danger also in having a golden handcuff benefit, because what if the situation changes? And if that's
Yeah.
the only reason they're joining, then do you really have a member? Do you really have someone if all they're joining for is to get that one rebate or to get whatever it might be, right? So we constantly, that's the other the other challenge I say is having the right set of reasons to join, because this person, it might be, I got a $50 per car rebate from Yamaha. The other person's like, I like the work you did on Capitol Hill on daylight saving time. Go for it. Keep pressing that. For this one, it's I like the Accelerate platform. I want to put my problem in front of hundreds of owners or thousands of owners to get a quick answer to my problem. You just never know, Mike, right? And so we're always trying to put forth a menu of benefits that can appeal to anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough. Some people know. So I now am helping the Pennsylvania Owners Association and the Ohio Owners Association. And I'm actually trying to grow membership. That's part of
Yeah.
what I'm trying to do.
It's happening.
Is grow membership. And what nobody knows this yet, but we are working on some elevated digital branding for every single member. I'll say it this way. It's like FOMO, right? What can I come up with where every single owner in Ohio and Pennsylvania will say, boy, that looks pretty sharp. I'd like to have that.
Yeah.
And then, but again, keeping it behind a membership wall and saying,
Yeah.
well, we want you to have it too. We just want your $400, which, by the way, I think if people at IBM or something listen to this podcast, they're going to say, what did Hendrix say? The membership is less than $1,000 a year. The thing that drives you nuts is like this. We're not asking for $15,000 a year here. This is a pretty affordable membership considering the benefits.
Yeah, thank you for saying that.
Yes.
But still, it's, church is free, and churches have trouble, getting folks to see the light and understand why they should be in those pews and so forth, right? So no matter what the dues are,
is going to watch this episode for the first time ever, but you've said church twice. This is amazing.
Oh my gosh, I feel like a preacher. Yeah.
Well, listen, it is the Tech Caddie Podcast. And when we have operators on, I make it a point to say, like, well, like, how Golf Week used to have, like, what's in the bag, right? What irons is he playing? What drivers is he playing? I love to go through a review of, like, well, what tech? What are you guys using? It would be interesting to hear from you. What is the technology that a national association like an NGCOA uses to run the association? How does that work?
Yeah, so we tried coining the acronym GMS in the golf industry a few years ago, a golf management software, essentially, right? I kind of stole that from the association world. We have AMS, Association Management Software. In our case, we use a platform called Nimble. And it's based in Salesforce. The DNA of it is Salesforce. And so, and it basically, you bolt on association type features and modules. And then we have access to the entire Salesforce ecosystem of plugins, whatever that might mean. And there are hundreds of software platforms and apps that plug into Salesforce. And we're actually plugging one in right now to help us with our sales, essentially systems, so that, to your point, getting out there and getting more golf course owners to join, to have sophisticated sales tool like Salesforce underneath it is great. There's also something called the Higher Logic platform. Higher Logic is what we plug into Nimble. Higher Logic is the Accelerate community. When you log into NGCOA, you're actually now in the Higher Logic system. And that's where you see the Accelerate, the library of stuff and all that. And we're about to launch, we've soft launched it, but we're about to launch Higher Logic's AI tool. And we're gonna be calling it Rossi after our founder, Don Rossi. So a member can go to Rossi and say something like, hey, I'm an 18-hole course in New England. What should I be paying my superintendent? And it's going to dig into the library and the body of knowledge in the NGCOA ecosystem, including our compensation reports, and pull out information for you, right?
Very cool.
That's all based in the Higher Logic platform. In fact, when we went out to the market a year or two ago to search for a new AMS product, we said it had to have a plugin with Higher Logic because that's became so important. And so those, and we use the typical stuff like QuickBooks Online and some other things, but Bill.com, but our nervous system is built around Nimble and Higher Logic.
Nice. Very nice. In Ohio and Pennsylvania, a little different. So we use HubSpot. And so HubSpot does all of our billing for us, all of our member management for us. And then what we've done is smbGOLF, we've built some custom plugins to make HubSpot and WordPress, because WordPress is our front end website. So when people want to come to the Pennsylvania Golf Course Owners Association, it's WordPress. But in the background, we have some things running that we built custom. So when Ron Stepanek onboards a new member in Pennsylvania and he clicks active, then that member automatically appears over on the front end website, right? And so, and for people that don't know, HubSpot and Salesforce are, super similar competitors, et cetera, et cetera.
The utopia for us will be when affiliates like Ohio and Pennsylvania is sharing data. So when someone joins Pennsylvania, it's automatically connected to their national record as well, because as you know, we have a dual membership.
Right. And I will say this, we've done work for Jonas, the Jonas technology company. They're a Salesforce company. And so we take advantage of what's called the HubSpot to Salesforce connector. So that connector does exist today. And that's not something that we built, but those connectors exist. So I think
let's talk offline about this, because
what you just said about Utopia is probably not too far down the road. So
let's do it. I love it.
Yeah. So Jay, what are we doing for the 4th of July? What's the Karen family going to be up to? Does it include golf? Walk us through it.
So tomorrow, July 3rd, the office is closed. So I'm definitely going to walk 9 holes with my wife and my 17-year-old at the club. We're members of the Daniel Island Club. Love that course. And then, but on Saturday, when we celebrate America's 250th birthday, we installed a pool this past winter. So we are hosting a classic pool party. We're going to be grilling dogs and hamburgers and just having a good old-fashioned time at the Karen pool.
Very good. Very good. Very good.
What about you?
Well, obviously the U.S. Open is a big deal for us. So we'll be at Scioto Country Club a lot. And then I'm fortunate. I mentioned this is where Jack and Barbara started their family, but at the end of our road is where the 4th of July parade for our entire town ends every single year for 100 years or something like that. And so I now have 3 boys that are all kind of in that just out of college or late college stage. And so there's a lot of young people at our house.
Exciting. You'll stay young by being around that.
That's exactly
or it will age you.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. Well, listen, I really do appreciate coming on the podcast. I think what you guys do is super important. I know I'm not there's a bunch of people rooting for you and that you get to that 7,000 number or whatever that, number is, because it does feel to me like it's earned, not just deserved, but you guys have earned that. And I'd love to see another 1,000 courses come on board, another 2,000 courses come on board. I think you guys have earned that.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate that. And our team is working hard on that, and we believe it too. And we will get there, and appreciate all the help that you've done for NGCOA by being one of our faculty members, doing the webinar and the AI workshop in Atlanta, which is great. And what you're doing for our affiliates out there in Ohio and Pennsylvania. So thanks for being part of the NGCOA family now.
Well, happy to do it. Happy to do it. Okay, that's Jay Karen, everybody, CEO of the National Golf Course Owners Association. And this was a Tech Caddie Podcast.